SBA Consultation and Guidelines. So I'm going to go into the presentation. Last time I stopped at methodology. So we're going to go into the presentation today. And also I got a request for tips on how to study. So I will also try to cover that maybe in the next session that I do. So I'm going to try to start with the presentation and analysis, cover that today. What I realized though, the last time when I actually switched, you all was unable to actually to hear me when I was going through this stuff. So what I'm gonna have to do is split my window so that you all would be able to see the presentation. Let me know if you all can hear me, if anyone is there. Can you all hear me? Good evening, Gasha. How are you? So I am going to start the presentation and analysis. Gasha, I think you would be doing a paper 3, which you should also have information on. So let us go into the presentation. Some of you should actually be on the way finishing up, so this should be like, tightening up the ends of your SB for your teacher, and things that you probably should have or you didn't look over. I'm going to just give you some pointers on how to do that. So I'm going to share. Are you all able to see? Are you all able to see my screen? So let me see if I can split this. If anyone know a better streaming link that I can use where you will be able to see it bigger, please let me know. All right. So the presentation, right? Illustrations. Your presentation is made up of illustrations and description of the illustrations. You must have at least 3 forms of illustrations in your data presentation, right? So your illustration can stem from graphs, tables, label photographs, pie charts, any of the above, even diagrams, right? But diagrams is considered, if it's taken from a book, it may be considered secondary information, but your presentation should be your primary data, which is the data that you collected. Hi, Asa. How are you? Are you in Form 4 or Form 5? Nice to meet you. So I'm Miss Fuchang. I'm just going through the SBA. Let me know if you all have any questions, right? So your illustrations should be 3 different forms of illustration. It can take the form of tables, pie charts, graphs, label photographs. You can have a diagram if you draw it from in the field or a field sketch, right? What you should also notice when you are doing your actual graphs, your graph should be clearly labeled in terms of having a title. Okay, great, Isa. You completed your SBA already. You should also have titles. You should have label your axis. Your axis should have labels, and you should have a key, and it must also say figure 1, figure 2, etc. So I can show you all another example of that before I go further. So I'm just going to open an example of a presentation, right? So let us say this is your presentation, and if you'll never work in Excel before, it's very useful that you begin working in Excel, so that you can do your graphs digitally. So just give me a second to share this. So you all should see this now. What you should be seeing is the Excel sheet. So you would see on the Excel sheet, if you did a, okay, great, Isa. So you're doing it over? Oh, you completed it. Great, great. That's excellent. Right. So here you all would see this Excel sheet, and I just put question 2, question 3, the number of respondents, and then the responses here. Right. I was showing someone how to do their presentation. So as you can see here, are you all seeing the Excel file? The screen is black. Why is it black? You all should be seeing, you all should be seeing some pie charts. Can you all see that? Right. So you all should see the pie charts, and you would see that I have a clear title. You would see figure 1, right? Figure 1 pie chart showing, and you have a clear title. So you would notice that you need to say what type of illustration it is. And of course, pie charts, bar graphs, they are all labeled as figures, figure 1, figure 2, figure 3, etc. Right? So that you see the number of percentages, and you have a key, blue, red. You can also do a pie chart, a donut ring, or a bar graph. So this is a bar graph. And on your bar graph, remember I was saying that you need to label your axis. So you label your X and Y axis, and then the percentages of all, you put the data labels of the percentages of each bar graph. So on your bar graph, what you should notice here, right, I'm going to zoom in a bit so that you can see the figures a bit clearer. You tally your question in terms of if it was 31 or 30 respondents, then you find the percentages. So 9 out of 31 or 11 out of 31, this one was 31, you find your percentages. So these are the percentages, and then you have your individual numbers below, right? When you all know how to do graphs. If not, I am going to just do a demonstration. Say you select the data where it is, then you go into insert in Excel, then you go into graphs, and then of course you insert graph, you pick whichever graph you want. In this case, you can do a 2D or a 3D, or you can do this horizontal one, but you want to maintain, of course, the percentages, right? So you always want to maintain percentages, because when you are doing your description, your descriptions will be in percentages. So just to go over that, you select the labels and the amount, and then of course you will see the percentages, right? So remember that you are using percentages. Select and then insert. All of your charts should be labeled properly. So you'd see here, this is a column graph showing figure 3. This one is a bar graph showing, and then you describe what it is. You all good with that? So I'm going to now go back to, I am going to now go back into the presentation where you will see the Word document. So that is your presentation. Your presentation should have at least 3 illustrations, fully labeled, and also your titles of your axis should also be well labeled, right? Then you have to describe each one, right? So quality of data means how accurate you presented your data. If you made error in the calculations and your teacher pick it up, you can lose marks. So the accuracy is important to get that full 4 marks. So accurate, correctly drawn and constructed. If you're using the computer, you will have less error because it does that for you. You just have to make sure that you calculated the percentages correctly, or you calculated correctly using the formula in Excel. Right? Your all of your illustrations should be integrated into your discussion and analysis. So you're not going to do your presentation and then do your discussion and analysis. You want to integrate your analysis. When I say integrate, when you do your illustration, you're going to do the description of it, and then you're going to do some analysis of that information. So for example, right, you see here I have figures are referred to as pie chart, bar graph, line graphs. Tables are called tables. So that would be labeled table 1, table 2, right? Diagrams would be diagram 1, maps are map 1, map 2. But all other forms of illustration like pies, bars, and lines are called figures. Photos are referred to as plates. So you have plate 1, plate 2, plate 3, right? So on this, it just tells you the importance of line graphs, bar graphs, how they are displayed, pie charts are displayed. Very important. So in your description, let me go through that now. So this is an example again in the document of how, right, you should do it. You don't also want to use points. You want to round this off to, if it's 5.5, that would be sync. If it's 25.5, that would be 25. 50, that would be 51%, 20%, and so forth, right? So you would see here, this study was done, a wave study, and they did number of waves per minute, and they had 3 sites. So when you are describing your data, it will be in figure 1 above, or the bar graph above show, or the figure above shows. The wave frequency for site 1 was 8 waves per minute, site 2, 7 waves per minute, site 3, 7 waves per minute. So that is what you consider description. Now, where she said this shows that all 3 sites had constructive waves, or the waves there were constructive, means that this is a summary, all right, based on the number of waves per minute. You analyze that that was actually constructive waves. So if we go to our Excel sheet and you want to do that in the same way, right? So if you want to now do the bar graphs that we have here, let us say, for example, you have this figure 4. So you will see here, it will say figure 4 above shows, or the bar graph below shows that 35% of the respondents noted that it took 10 to 15 minutes to get to the highway via the southern main road, whereas 13% stated 16 to 20 minutes. And then you could say, then you had 32% stated 6 to 10 minutes, and then 22 to 5 stated 19%, sorry, stated 2 to 5 minutes. So you can go from the highest to the lowest. So you state the majority of the respondents had spent 10 to 15 minutes getting to the highway via the southern main road. Then you could say 32% said it took 6 to 10 minutes, and then 16% said 13% said 16 to 20 minutes. The analysis of this would be you are seeing that 10 to 15 minutes was stated by the respondents, right? The highest amount of respondents stated 10 to 15 minutes, whereas 16 to 20 minutes, 13% stated. So maybe you can say usually the average time to commute via the highway to the southern main road is 10 to 15 minutes. However, during peak hours or rush hour, it may take a longer time, as stated by 13%, 16 to 20 minutes. And on average, you can even get to the highway even faster when there is probably no traffic or no congestion in the area, 6 to 10 minutes. Everybody understand that? So that is what you refer to as analysis. And your analysis can be backed with secondary information, in that you gather it from existing sources of information. You do the research to see what is out there, what you can use to back the information that you have in your primary data collection, in the data that you collected. So I hope you all understand what is required of you in your presentation. Right? So that is the presentation, and you have 3 different forms. You describe and then you analyze. So analyze is actually giving reason for that particular information that you gathered from it, right? So that is, then you can have a plate, so a photograph. You would see here photographs are referred to as plates, and it's labeled, so you can see that there, right, where you are seeing it. And then same way, so analysis, right, analysis and discussion. Presentation of illustration must be part of your discussion and analysis, and not separate. So they don't want 2 separate sections, they want it integrated, right? Your analysis must give a written account of your findings from your field measurements observation, and also it must have some secondary information, which is existing information from books, journals, newspapers, other information that is out there that can actually add to your research, right? And to get the full marks in your discussion and analysis, your work must be well organized, coherent, well developed, and sequence points, supported by the evidence of secondary and your field work. Then you jump to your conclusion, and your conclusion is supposed to tie up everything that you did in your SBA. So it is supposed to summarize your presentation, discussion, and analysis, the results of your presentation, the analysis that and discussion that you did. So it's a summary and it's supposed to answer your aim. So whatever your aim or the aim of investigation is, aim of study is, it's a small paragraph that is summarizing those points, and it should not cross more than 200 words. And then you have, of course, the bibliography structure. And then, of course, you have to do that. You must do your bibliography in alphabetical order, of course, with the author's surname first, right? Then you have the book title, it's underlined, publisher, location, and copyright. Here, these are a few examples, and it must be in alphabetical order. So we have Blaisdell, SC, CSEC, New Integrated Geography. Then if you have more than one author, you have the author et al., which means and others. And then you have Mark Wilson. If you are doing an atlas, right, the atlas may not have the authors on it. If you're doing a map, you have to cite the map sheet like this. Newspapers, you want to put the title of the newspaper article. You can also put the person who wrote the newspaper, and of course the date. If you're using internet sites, you have to put the website, the name of the website, the name of the article, the URL link, which is the www. And the date that you access that information. So that is basically your bibliography. Appendix is basically at the end of your SBA. Your appendix is going to have all of your raw data and the survey instruments. So if you use a questionnaire, if you did a data sheet to collect wave coast wave data or information on coastal features, all of that is going to be in your appendix, right? And then, of course, you have to submit your SBA in a digital format. So that is why you want to start your doing your SBA, not handwritten, although you can submit it handwritten, but you may have to scan that if you did it written. So you want to do it in a Word document or a Docs document where you can save it and it's easy to submit. So that is just the outline guidelines. If anybody wants additional help, need additional help, you can reach out to me. If you need a lot more work, well, then that is something we have to discuss further. But if you need a general, Miss, I don't understand this, you can post it in the Discord group. I will post the Discord School of Geography Discord for you password so that you can post your questions and I can answer. So that is basically the guidelines. So tips for studying. So how you want to study. If you haven't started studying yet, geography syllabus is quite large. I suggest that you begin now because it is quite late already, given the short time that you have for exams, right? So this is the geography syllabus, and I'm just going to go into how you should prepare or should start studying for the exam. Okay, so you should be able to see the geography syllabus here. I'm not sure if you are seeing this. Right, you're seeing my screen. You should be able to see it, right? So this is the geography syllabus. In geography, it is tested slightly different to other subjects. because we have what we call practical skills and map work. So your exam and the syllabus is organized into three main sections. You have section one, which is your practical skills and field studies. So that will take care of your SBA, practical skills SBA. Then you have natural systems and you have human system. And then this is actually split into what we call section one, section two, and section three. So section one is natural systems, and you're going to have some practical skills there. Each section, right? Section one, section two, and section three, right? Each section contains a practical skills component, right? So that practical skills component, you have to know how to read bar graphs, pie charts. You have to know how to construct it as well, read it, and determine trends from it. So on your past paper, you would see that that is usually the first question. The first section of any question on your exam, usually there's a graph, some sort of illustration, a diagram. That is your practical skills. And you have to learn those, right? Then you have your natural systems, natural human systems. And then, of course, the first section, which your main first section, which is your map work section. So under practical skills, you would see here, this is what you need to know. You need to know how to use the scale for measurement. So measuring measurement, whether it's using the lines or linear scale, measuring distances along a road, changing and converting to the different types of scale, ratio and fractional scales, right? You have to be able to read maps. So the large maps that you have, those are called topographical maps. You have to be able to read topographical maps, be able to collect and collate data for geographical analysis, which would have been what you did for your SBA, that primary data collection is that is what they're referring to. You have to be able to know how to draw maps, diagrams, and sketches, which some of these skills you would have covered in your SBA drawing of maps if you did diagrams, sketches, constructing tables and divided charts. So I know because most students may use Excel, you may not have the experience drawing it by hand, but in maths, I am quite confident that a lot of you probably would have learned to draw graphs, tables, and charts, but you should have some practice with it. Your teachers should have at least pull out past papers that would allow you to get this practice, right? Read and identify patterns in maps, photographs, tables. So that is your practical skills. Geography is it's marked on the three profiles: the practical skills, knowledge and comprehension, and use of knowledge. You have three main sections in which it is marked. Your use of knowledge is the heaviest weighted section, meaning it carries the most marks. So if you don't do well in that portion of the exam, which is basically questions like explain, analyze, right? Those are weighted heavier. You're going to lose a lot of the marks, right? So this is the composition of it. You would see practical skills, 24. Then you have knowledge and comprehension, 28, right? And then use of knowledge, 8 questions. So that is how the questions are distributed across the profiles in total, right? So this is the mark allocation. This is important for you all to know. I want you all to look at the structure. Map reading question 1 is your first question. And you will notice that the practical skills is weighted heaviest in your map reading, because that is where you learn about measuring scales, distances, using scales, distances, measuring angles, grid referencing, those practical skills and map work skills that you need to know. Use of knowledge is less, and knowledge and comprehension is less. That's 25 marks. However, when you look at natural system, human system, natural human systems, use of knowledge is weighted the heaviest, 12 marks in each profile. Look at that. 12, 12, 12. So guys, you all have to learn how to describe the processes, explain the processes, and knowledge and comprehension would deal with more describing. So here where you have explain and analyze, those 12 marks you all need to get, because together your practical skills and knowledge and comprehension, if you master this is what? 58 marks, whereas use of knowledge is 42. So imagine if you fall down very bad here, you barely get in a grade 1, because you have to get all 51 marks to actually get a good grade. So you have to get marks in your use of knowledge, and that is where you need to focus on. How do you focus on that? There are some key words that you need to know, right? So this is also important. This is the structure of how it is mapped. Your paper 1, your paper 2. Look at it, your paper 1, and this is what we just went through in terms of the questions and the total. So your paper 1 is 60 marks. Your paper 2 is out of 100 marks, but it's weighted 30% for your paper 1, 50% for your paper 2, and then of course your SBA is 20%, which would make up SBA and paper 1 is 50%. So if you master the paper 1s, do all of the paper 1s, and you do well in your SBA, you already have a good start, right? But that other 50%, a lot of it is within this use of knowledge. So you want to actually master answering those questions so that you can get a greater percentage of marks in that use of knowledge, and you can get a grade 1. That's the difference between students who get a grade 1 and a grade 2. The grade 1 students, they tend to pick up the marks in the use of knowledge, right? So if you want to aim with that, you have to practice that. Your aim is to get a grade 1. You have to practice answering those use of knowledge questions. So I'm going to go into the content and how you should really study. Your teacher is supposed to cover the content in the syllabus. So this is the content area. I'm going to go into the content. So you would see this is the content. So the content is this, what your teacher should be teaching in school, right? So this is lithosphere, atmosphere, biosphere, hydrosphere. It goes into lithosphere, plate tectonics, rocks, and this is what you need to cover. When your teacher have covered this information, you have to be able now to answer the specific objectives, which is where or how CXC is going to test you. So you should, from the content covered by your teacher and what you are studying, when you study the content, when you are finishing, you should be able now to describe the internal structure of the earth. If you went through all of that information and you studied and you cannot describe the internal structure of the earth, it meant that you did not cover the content properly to actually cover the specific objective, to answer the specific objective. Are you all following me? Is that okay? Asa, Gasha, are you all following me with that? All right. So explain, right? You have to explain the theory of plate tectonics. So when you are describing gives characteristics of the feature or whatever it is you are describing. It's going to describe the characteristic or the features of that particular phenomena that you are describing. When you get explain, you have to give more information. You have to say how and why, meaning you go more in detail. So what I need you all to know, there is at the end of your syllabus, there is a list of words, the list of all the words that will come on your exam. So these words are actually defined at the end of the syllabus for you. So the ones that are common, I want you to go through the past papers and see what are the common questions that they ask you, right? So you would see here, these are the actual words. These are the words. So you all see the words here, analyze. So look at describe. Describe. Provide statements of the features or characteristics of an object or process or phenomena. And then you have explain. Explain would be provide detailed logical statements which make clear what happened, how it happened, and why it happened. So when you are explaining, this is the difference between a describe and an explain question. So you have to know what the words mean in order to be able to answer the question. So that is how you should be studying. You should be looking at the content, and then when you finish studying the content, you should now try to answer the objectives, because CXC is going to pull questions from the objective and the content that you cover. But the best guide is looking at the specific objectives to answer in the syllabus. So if you now go to a past paper question, right, there is also something called the reports. The reports, I don't know if you all ever saw the reports, but the reports will give you similar, like some answers. So I can go more in detail in that next week. So this is an example of a report. So the report might provide answers. So what you want to do is go through all of the questions that you get in a particular past paper questions, and then go through the report and see what answers or explanation they gave you all that you may not have answered. So you would see here they tell you how the students perform, if you all were able to interpret the question correctly or not, and they sometimes provide you with answers. So use the report as well as a guide to help you. So I want you all to see when they ask you a question, right? In the past paper, for example, they tell you to so in a question paper, right, you see identify one problem, explain. Those are taken from, of course, the specific objectives. So you really need to understand what those words mean, because that is how your questions are phrased on your exam. Yes, and then of course answer it. Use the reports as a help if you have specimen papers. That will also help. That is also available online. I think it's free. So you see here, state for benefits. State is straightforward, right? Explain two ways in which the development of agriculture is influenced by climate. That is actually, explain. So it comes from those lists of questions, those list of terms, I should say, terminology from these specific objectives they're going to test you, and that is how you should study along with your reports, right? That is how you should study and practice. I will also give you some other tips. So stay tuned for the next live. I hope this helps. If you have a comment, you can always leave a comment in the chat and join the Discord group, as I can reply there a bit faster. All right, as I see it, as I would see it sooner than on YouTube. Bye, guys. Have a good evening and see you next time. Remember to share, tell your friends, share. I have lots of things that I want to start doing soon, past paper questions. So share with others and let's get this going. Bye.